The bosses of Australia's critical minerals and rare earths companies couldn't be happier after Donald Trump and Anthony Albanese signed a deal aimed at kickstarting enough mining and processing projects here and in the US to counter China's dominance in the sector. Each nation has committed at least $1.5 billion to develop projects in the next 6 months, pledging a combined investment of 13 billion Australian dollars over the longer term. Chief Business Correspondent Ian Verrender is here with me in the studio. Hi Ian, we don't have all the details of the planned investment yet, but can you explain why such a big spend is needed?
Well, Kirsten, America controls the world's money and money markets. The Middle East controls petroleum and China controls metals, and particularly refined metals. And we're talking about everything from steel, copper, aluminium, lithium, you name it, they're into it. But it's rare earths where they've really taken a stranglehold on global supply, and not just in the mining side of it, but in the refining. Now, when it comes to refining, China has around about 90+% control, some rare earths around 98% control. So that has enabled them to dictate the price, which enables them to put competitors out of business when the mood suits them, or to exert pressure on countries like Japan and America if they upset them.
Okay, Ian, we'll return to you shortly.
Thanks.
Arafura's Nolans project in the Northern Territory is one of today's biggest winners. The Australian government will invest another $150 million into the light rare earths project, taking its total investment to more than $1 billion. And it's in line to receive another $450 million from the US. CEO Darryl Cuzzubbo told me why the project is being viewed as a priority.
So rare earths is absolutely critical for anything that requires permanent magnets, electric vehicles, electronics, turbines, etc. And today, 90% of that supply is controlled by China, and the US, as well as other manufacturing powerhouses, they want to diversify their supply chain. The problem is there's not that many rare earths projects that can move into construction. In fact, if you look across the globe, we are the only one that can move into construction in a matter of months and bypass the China supply chain. So this investment that we saw today from the Australian government was critical to round out our funding, get us closer to a fully funded solution.
Darryl Cuzzubbo there. Ian, Australia and the US have committed $13 billion today on top of several billion already. Are Australian taxpayers going to have to continue to shell out support for the sector?
In the short term, Kirsten, I'd expect so. But these are, products that are absolutely vital to the future of our economy and our society. And they've been, used as strategic weapons against the West by China for quite some time. So it will be long run, I think, economical.
Okay, thanks, Ian. I asked Darryl Cuzzubbo whether projects like Arafura's will ever be commercially viable without a level of government support. Let's listen to what he said.
The one thing that's required, it's only the one thing, is a rare earths pricing index that reflects supply-demand fundamentals. So the way China has controlled the rare earth sector is it has controlled price, which has meant there's been no incentive, no commercial incentive for other rare earths projects to get up. With the US support, and this is literally in the last 2 months, they have created an independent pricing index through a company called Benchmark Minerals Intelligence that in time will reflect supply-demand fundamentals. When that is working as it should, you don't need the sort of government support that we need at the moment. It's all because the pricing's been controlled, been manipulated. Mm-hmm.
So can China's stranglehold on rare earths be broken?
China has controlled their pricing, but it's up to the West to determine a fair pricing indicator, a fair pricing index, and the US has done that literally in the last couple of months. That's why it's an exciting time to be in the rare earth sector, because you see that the number one barrier of entry being being removed. And you see, countries like Australia, US, Germany's another one, moving quickly to address and get their own independent supply of rare earths.
Australian Strategic Materials wasn't featured in today's deal, but the company expects it will also benefit, and soon. It could be in line to receive a debt funding package of up to $920 million to begin construction of its rare earths project in Dubbo in New South Wales. The CEO, Rowena Smith, joined me.
We've got an existing facility in Korea where we are metallising rare earths, and we're looking to replicate that in the US. So when we went through that capital raise last week, we had really strong institutional interest from the US, but we're expecting to see that continue to strengthen as we build that metallisation business. But then upstream of that, we really want the feed, and the feed opportunity for ASM is with our project in Dubbo in New South Wales, which we are really at the final parts of seeking investment and off-takers, and these government-to-government frameworks are really enabling for us to finalise those investment and off-take discussions.
Does it mean that ASM is going to be able to consider processing onshore?
Well, what we need to do is we need to build supply chains across jurisdictions. So what we're planning to do here in Australia is mine and then do the first step of the processing, the value add, to take it all the way through to oxides. So that's the most capital intensive step of the process, and why it's really important that we've got US as well as Australian institutional and government support for funding that. We've already got from US Exim just under $1 billion Australian of support for funding for our project here in Australia. So, yes, we absolutely will be processing in Australia, but once it's oxide, you still have to be able to metallise it and alloy it before it can be turned into a magnet. So those facilities, which we've already got in Korea, that's what we're looking to build in the States.
How quickly do you see this announcement enabling processing of critical minerals and rare earths to take place in a greater way in Australia?
Well, I think that the challenge for Australia is that in order to take it from mine all the way through to oxide, that's a significant step. It requires significant capital, but also it's a significant construction and commissioning process to be able to do that. So there's no doubt that that will be a few years before those projects will be in operation. But what we are fortunate here in Australia is that we have a number of projects like ours in Dubbo in New South Wales, but also Arafura that was part of the announcement this morning. We've got projects like those two that actually have already invested so much time and effort to getting to the point where all the technology is developed, all of the exploration work is done, all of the engineering work is done, the permitting is all done. So these projects are genuinely ready to be able to take straight into investment decision and into construction. So I would expect that we would be able to see Australia producing within the next 5 years.
Rowena Smith from Australian Strategic Materials emphasising there how the backing of the Australian and US governments is to the ability of miners to get their projects off the ground. Now, Ian, investors had been anticipating this announcement for some time. How did stocks go today?
Well, today there was some profit taking, but bear in mind the market's been running hot for so long, best part of a year. I mean, Lynas' share price has trebled in the past year, Arafura's quadrupled. So, and a big lead up, a big boost, bounce in the market in the past month or so. Obviously, the people are going to sell when the announcement's made.
And miners have pushed the market higher. The ASX 200 and the All Ordinaries finishing the day up by 0.7%. The Australian dollar is buying around 65 US cents. Lithium may not have gotten a look in today's announcement, but many in the industry are hopeful a framework is now in place to strengthen its position and enable supply chains outside of China. Dale Henderson is PLS, formerly Pilbara Minerals CEO. Welcome. Is China's domination of lithium and lithium processing a textbook example of why the US and Australia have announced the deal they have?
Well, I think what we're seeing is the world is building out supply chains for these future-facing industries, whether it's rare earths or lithium. There's a lot to be built out. And credit to China, they've been one of the first movers to build out this very necessary industry. And now we're seeing other countries getting on with it. And so the announcement today between the US and Australia is a fantastic demonstration of two partners getting on with the job to support these future-facing industries.
Are there implications from today's announcement for Pilbara Minerals and the lithium sector in Australia more generally?
Look, I think today's news is an incredibly positive sign for critical minerals and specifically for Australia. And groups like PLS, well, we're poised to potentially do well out of these types of announcements. Reason being, PLS is the largest hard rock lithium operator globally. Our future project pipeline is unallocated. Therefore, we're positioned to devote those lithium units to wherever in the world makes most sense.
So at the moment, the majority of Pilbara's lithium is contracted to China, but you do see that this framework will enable Pilbara to actually seek out other markets in the medium to longer term?
Yeah, well, you're right. As it stands today, PLS is largely concentrated to China as a function of the processing capacity for the lithium industry today. However, over time, we've been seeking to diversify that.
We're yet to see the details of the critical minerals reserve stockpile. Will diversifying further depend on where that ends up? What are you hoping to see from that stockpile?
Yeah, well, very early days, as you say. We're waiting for the details on that stockpile strategy.
You'll need to see a floor price, for instance?
A floor price would be very helpful, but not necessarily the only type of support which would help the industry, but we would certainly love to see a floor price.
What other supports would you like to see?
Well, probably the highest priority for us is shared infrastructure. This really matters for Australia because if the government can invest in shared infrastructure, that lowers the cost for all. Then outside of that, it's things like power, putting forward an integrated power solution, which again would lower the cost for all. So it's these types of shared infrastructure investments mean we all become lower cost, therefore more globally competitive, in which case better enables Australia to capture more market share.
Dale, rare earths are getting a lot of the attention today, but you've been looking into the future demand for lithium. We're going to see some pictures and I'd like you to explain them to us.
Sure. So the outlook for lithium is incredibly exciting, and we're seeing a bunch of new green shoots, including EV tolls, which you can see here. So this is one I had the pleasure of flying in Guangzhou, China.
Do you mean an autonomous drone?
That's right, one which can carry people and goods. So we had the pleasure of being transported in that, and it's an exciting new use case for lithium products.
Okay, so that's already in operation in China and elsewhere?
So that particular producer is named Ehung. They've done flights in 19 different countries, and they're at the early stages of trying to push out that product adoption. But of course, regulations per country are a key piece to be worked through, but it's a good example of a future demand for lithium.
Dale Henderson, thank you.
Thank you.
Dale Henderson there. Ian, is this deal going to be politically difficult for Australia given its trading relationship with China?
Well, Kirsten, for more than a decade, we've straddled that divide between economics and diplomacy. You know, strategically we're aligned with America, but our economics has all been driven by China and the boom in China. And at some stage or another, you get the impression that we're going to have to choose between one or the other. And I mean, you know, just a fortnight ago, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, requested Australia decouple from China. And that's not the first time that's happened. Barack Obama once suggested we stop selling iron ore to China. I mean, you do get the impression that if tensions continue to run the way they are, that there will be some kind of split between us and China at some stage.